In this episode of Pop Culture Weekly, I talk with country star Jamey Johnson about his brand new song, his first in nearly a decade. Plus, we talk with Erik Davis from Fandango all about the biggest summer movies coming out this year. Let's go!
Welcome to Pop Culture Weekly with Kyle McMahon from iHeartRadio. Your pop culture news, views, reviews, and celebrity interviews on all the movies, TV, music, and pop culture you crave weekly. Here's Kyle McMahon.
Nah. What's up? Welcome to Pop Culture Weekly with Kyle McMahon. I, of course, am Kyle McMahon, and I thank you for hanging out with me and, rapping about pop culture. This week, this episode, I have two cool things going on. I speak with Jamey Johnson, country music songwriter, singer, who he hasn't released a single in like a decade. I believe his last single was 2015, so 9 years ago. And he is releasing one, now that you're listening, he has released one called 21 Guns. And it is a tribute to the men and women that we have lost, that were in our armed forces. It's referring to the 21 gun salute. Jamey himself was in the armed forces. He was a United States Marine for 4 years and kind of began playing country music in bars while he was, in the Marines, which is pretty cool. So I talk with Jamey about that. He's going to be performing at the 2024 National Memorial Day concert on PBS, which I will be there live from. We'll have a special episode with the performers there coming out in just a few days. So it's the next episode that's coming out. I'll be talking with the performers. And by the way, some of the performers, Joe Mantegna and Gary Sinise, who as always, host, the National Memorial Day concert. From Breaking Bad, Bryan Cranston. And I've talked to Cynthia before, but Cynthia Erivo, who of course has been in so many great things, but will be is in Wicked, which comes out this fall. It's going to be a huge movie musical. And Jenna Malone is performing, and Patina Miller. There's so many great artists and talent that will be performing for the National Memorial Day concert, which you can watch live on Sunday night on your local PBS station, or you can watch on demand for the following 2 weeks and on Facebook and YouTube and all the good stuff. So be sure to, keep in touch with me through social. You'll see my updates from rehearsals for National Memorial Day concert and my interviews with the talent. Also, I talk once again with managing editor at Fandango, Erik Davis, and we talk the most anticipated movies of summer 2024. So I'm really excited to get into that. Let's start with my interview with Jamey Johnson, discussing his career and his first single in 9 years. Here he is, Jamey Johnson. I want to welcome Jamey Johnson to iHeartRadio's Pop Culture Weekly. We are discussing 21 Guns, which he will be premiering at National Memorial Day concert on PBS. But for a moment, I'd like to go back, Jamey, if you don't mind. First of all, thank you for your service. You served in the U.S. Marines. I come from a military family myself, and I can't thank you enough for your service. So thank you for that.
Oh, hell, I was proud I got to do it.
I have a lot of friends in the Marines. Marines are such a great, great branch. All of our branches, obviously, but I have a special spot for the Marines. So for you, when you were in the military, that's kind of when you started performing, right? You were, I think, in Montgomery or something, and kind of started performing at bars. Is that accurate?
Well, in a way, I started singing in front of crowds in church, and that was at a really young age. And so performing goes back with me all the way.
Wow.
As early as I can remember, grabbing a guitar and getting up with my dad and my sister and, singing gospel songs in church. but yeah, when I was in the Marines, I started kind of, I don't know, I'd go book a bar gig somewhere, 20 years old, 19, 20 years old, booking wherever I could get to. It was one of those things that kind of bonded me to a lot of the Marines I was serving with was, the fact that we could take my guitar somewhere, like we went into Laughlin, Nevada and set up and played somewhere. But we would just be out in the damn desert and throw a hat upside down, collect tips, or play Stump the Band or whatever,
Yeah.
And have these guys, well, this song? No. But it was fun. I had a great time, and it taught me a lot about music. It taught me an awful lot about the kind of music other people like.
Mm.
People will get deep with you on their music.
Yeah. Music is, definitely a unifier that transcends language and creed and zip codes. And, it's pretty incredible. For you, did that shape you? Did that shape your songwriting at all in those kind of formative years?
No, well, everything has to.
Mm.
You only get the one perspective, so you use everything in that perspective for songwriting. There's not an aspect of my life that's been walled off or safe from my songwriter, which is not always a good thing. Being an introvert, it's sometimes cringeworthy for me to look at the things that I put in detail in songs and think, why have I let this guy have control of the vessel? He's ratting us all out.
And it's been, it's I would imagine that it is therapeutic for you. It's something that I assume needs to come out in some form. And, this is a safe, I mean, besides the fact that it could go to millions and millions of people, but it's a safe way to get that out, I would imagine.
Well, it's been safe so far. Yeah, if you're a songwriter, it's something you have to do. They're coming when they're coming. For me, for the longest time, I didn't record them. Or I wrote something good. My first phone call was going to be to send it to Willie or George Strait or somebody that I knew might appreciate it.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's interesting that you say that because, I was going to lead in. This is a great lead in to, from after the Marines, you, from my understanding, moved to Nashville and jumped into that world. But were you looking to become a songwriter? Was that your goal, or did you want to be a performer as well?
Oh, I was already a songwriter. When I moved to Nashville, I don't know how many songs I had written at that time, but I bet it was close to 500.
Wow.
And none of them had ever been co-written. I always wrote by myself. I didn't know really anything about co-writing. It seemed that it wasn't even a foreign concept. It was just something I'd never thought about. We're going to write a song, two of us. How are we going to do that? It only goes in one direction, the way your mind tells it to go.
Right.
So co-writing became like it felt like a team sport when I first started off. You have to learn an awful lot about when to be quiet when you're co-writing. Because anything I say can move it in a direction that's against where somebody else is trying to go. And that's not conducive for good songwriting if people can't agree. So it's an art, it's a team event at that point.
Yeah.
Songwriting was not something I came to Nashville for. I came to Nashville because Hank Williams came to Nashville, because the Opry's in Nashville, because the entire music industry was in Nashville, and I knew I was supposed to be a part of it.
Wow.
And just like I knew I was going to be a Marine when I was little, I knew I was going to be a part of the Grand Ole Opry in some form, and I knew I was going to be a part of the music industry in Nashville. You know, I didn't really think about it until the other day. Somebody asked me how long I've been in my studio now, which doesn't seem like a long time. And then I realized I moved into this studio in 2010, where I'm at right now. And we've been there for 14 years already in this spot, which is Chet Atkins' old office. It's the office in the RCA building that Chet Atkins used to decide the fates of young artists. And it feels good to me to know that this was the office of a musician. This isn't the first time music has been resonating off the walls in this room. And old Chester seems happy with it. So. Good for now.
I love that. And when you came, you ended up relatively quickly. I mean, and I say that, knowing that you had years of blood, sweat, and tears in it. But, you ended up writing Honky Tonk Badonkadonk, which is still an iconic song. That had to be huge for you, I would imagine.
The Badonkadonk?
Yeah.
It was huge.
But I mean, like, especially, personally, I mean, you come to Nashville and, you're looking to make your mark. And then you have this iconic song that you write that is still today is iconic, what was that like for you?
We were all young and, at that point had not had a success in our career, me and Randy Houser, Dallas Davidson. And we knew we had a gigantic song. It was everything that people needed put on just for a 3-minute mindless ditty. This one will do. I was proud I got to make my kid dance. She was a year old in diapers at the time. And when that song would come on, she just felt something different in it and got to wiggling her butt in a diaper. It was a blessing. It took us 30 minutes to write. We spent most of that time laughing. And from the time that song came out, my life changed drastically. I went from being a general contractor to being a musician.
Wow. Is that when you realized I'm here, I made it?
Well, it was the starting line, I think.
And what a gigantic way to start.
It was the starting line of the race, and there were all kinds of steps that led up to getting there. But it was definitely a turning point for sure.
Then you ended up releasing a couple of albums. I believe your second one, that Lonesome Song, which still today is, praised and renowned for, especially the songwriting. When you get yet another achievement like that, do you feel, is that when you're like, I'm very just curious because you've had so many highs in your career. 11-time nominated, Grammy nominated artist. When is it that you're like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm doing it now? Was it with that album? Do you ever feel that way? Was it with Badonkadonk? When do you say, wow, this is what I dreamed about when I was little?
Well, the version of the music industry that I found wasn't what I expected, especially after the outlaw movement. I thought that Nashville would be a little more free and easy with ideas, that they come from all over the place. And what I found when I first started off was everything was locked down, and it was all kind of dictated out how things would go. It seemed so. Here's the difference. There's producers you can work with. Like for me, I had a great producer, Buddy Cannon. One of Buddy's secrets is how he sets a mood for a room for the musicians, because all of these musicians have worked with him before, and when he starts a session off, and it just feels a certain way. I mean, he lets players play what they imagine, and if that needs a little dialing in, he can chime in and offer up suggestions. Most of the time with Buddy, he doesn't. Most of the time he would chime in with something that is distracting, or listen to this. Are you sure you want that to go that way? And then there's producers out there that are very rigid and very demanding. It's got to go exactly like this right here, right now. And then these parts have to be laid out just so. And they're more like a orchestra conductor in the way that they have the overall plan, and they're going to dictate that out as they go. The music business that I started off in was very orchestral and demanding, and everything had to be done, and I wasn't expecting that. I would have thought that by now they figured out that micromanaging the piss out of people is a great way to put out crappy music.
Yeah.
But they did it that way anyway. And I tried my best to navigate through those kinds of waters. And I felt like I had. Lonesome wasn't the first time I started doing things the way I wanted them done. It was just the way that worked. After we put out another project, but it was also it worked that way because I had changed through that whole experience too. There was a lot of me that was in the way of some of the early projects. I can be a smart ass, but like a bad dog, I can be in the way too.
Is that why you started your own label eventually?
Well, I started my own label to minimize the hopping back and forth between the other ones that was starting to look like it was going to be a norm. And plus, if you're going to put anything out and you're not signed to a label, you kind of have to create a label name, because that's the way that the industry is set up. So I created a record label off of the name of my publishing company at the time. So we go by Big Gas Records, and I think that's going to be my label for the rest of the movie. I think I'm just going to hold on right there, and I may partner up with other labels as I go, and may try to do some different things. But everything I record from now on is going to be on my own label.
I love that. And now, you've you're putting out this song, 21 Guns, that is a beautiful tribute in so many ways, and you're going to be performing it, nationally, live on television nationally for the first time. From my understanding, you've played it, at some of your shows and stuff over the last couple of years, but this is the big debut. This song is so powerful. Where did that come from for you?
When I was a young Marine, I served at those funerals, and even one or two where I was one of the guys pulling the trigger, and it always impacts you. Those would have been for Marines that I didn't know, for families that I didn't know, and later on, I'm standing there as a friend to a Marine that's passed away. And then that happened over and over and over again. And it impacts you to know that this is somebody who ended their life at a young age and sacrificed that for their country. That's going to impact you. The more of these funerals I attended, the more I started kind of empathizing, not just with the loss of the family, but listening to how people express their grief. And that's one of the sentiments that came through was, I don't need anybody to tell me that you were a hero. I've known that your whole life. Well, same with me. I met these guys when they were young. I knew what they were then. So it's an acceptance of the honor of the 21 gun salute. But it's also like a family kind of claiming their own. Yeah. I love it. The beginning of it saying, we'd love to take you back home, but there ain't no place like this there.
Yeah. You performing it, the West Lawn of the U.S. Capitol for, Memorial Day. Have you thought about, and I hope I'm not, if you haven't, I hope I'm not adding to any, stress or anxiety towards it, but have you thought about the weight of that, being in Washington, D.C., performing this incredible song on Memorial Day?
Yeah. I don't put that kind of weight on them, but I do understand that there's probably somebody out there that needs to hear this. And in that regard, I'm not there for me. I'm there to deliver a song, and that's it. So there's not a lot of pressure. I hope I don't mess it up. Do sometimes. But yeah, I'm not there for me.
That's incredible. Finally, what does Memorial Day mean to you? Marine, songwriter, American. What does Memorial Day mean for you?
It's a time we've set aside as a country to remember well and appreciate and give gratitude to the people who have lost their lives in support of this country, in service of our country. There's a difference between that and Veterans Day. Veterans Day is for anybody who served. This is for people who, Memorial Day is for people who have lost limbs, lost their lives in service. people who, without them, there probably wouldn't be in America today. It should be heavy. We're here for a reason, man. We're here because, at least in our own lives, because the greatest generation back in the 1940s was able to defeat Adolf Hitler. That came at a loss of an astonishing loss of life by the time that war was over with. So this is our way of remembering ours, ones who fought the good fight, the good guys.
I love that. Jamey Johnson, thank you so much. 21 Guns out everywhere, including the free iHeartRadio app. And we will see you PBS's National Memorial Day concert. Thank you so much for speaking with me.
Yes, sir. It was enjoyable. I'll see you soon.
Yes, I'll see you at rehearsals. Jamey Johnson, what an awesome talent. Incredible songwriter. He's had a pretty amazing career with the different people that he's written with and for, and interesting career as a songwriter and performer himself. We're going to take a quick break, pay the bills. I will be back in 60. Thanks for sticking with me. All right. Thanks for hanging out with me while we paid the bills. Our advertisers are who are able to keep the show going and interview amazing talent and talk all things movies, music, TV, streaming, technology, all the pop culture stuff with you. So, all right. Next up, once again, managing editor of Fandango, Erik Davis, is back on. This time, we are discussing the most anticipated films of the summer 2024 movie season. So there's a lot of good ones coming out, and I can't wait to talk with Erik and see what his picks are, as well as the survey that Fandango did, which you can find on fandango.com, to see what the most anticipated movies of summer 2024. So here we go. Erik Davis. All right. iHeartRadio, Pop Culture Weekly. Once again, I am joined by Fandango's Erik Davis, who I always love chatting with. Today, we are talking about the most anticipated summer movie survey from Fandango, which I am excited about. There's a lot, in my opinion, a lot of great films coming out this summer. How are you, Erik?
Doing good. You know what? I'm getting ready for summer, and I think this is one of my favorite times of year because there's a lot of big movies on the way, and I think people don't realize like the extent of the movies that are coming over the next 3 months. And so that's what's so great about these like most anticipated surveys, and because it kind of lets you know, oh yeah, I forgot that movie was coming up. That's what a lot of people have been saying to me over the last couple of days. It's like, oh, I forgot that movie was coming in July. So it's always a great time to not just see what audiences are most looking forward to, but then to also just get educated, right, on what's coming.
Yeah, and for a lot of people not like us, their exposure potentially could be, seeing a ad at the Super Bowl or something, and then you kind of forget about it for a few months until, here we are in the end of May and kicking off summer movie season, and like you said, people might be, oh shoot, I forgot about that. I saw that ad on the Super Bowl 4 months ago or 5 months ago or whatever, and now it's finally coming out or whatever,
Without a doubt. Yeah, I was at a baseball game for my son the other day, and a mom leaned over and she goes, is there really a new Quiet Place movie coming out this summer? And I was like, yes, there is. It comes out June 28th, actually. So yeah, I think there's just a lot of people are just now sitting down and saying, okay, let me see what is coming out this summer. And they're realizing that there's a lot of cool movies.
Yes. And of course, for the stormy days, which we will get in the summer, where there's stormy nights where you can't get out to the theater or whatever. We have a lot of those in my area, and you're 2 hours away, but where we get the tornado warnings and all the time. There's Fandango at home, so you can catch up on all the films from the winter and spring as well.
Yeah, without a doubt, and then a lot of those films that come out this summer sort of come towards the tail end of summer. They come home. So we ask people not only what films are you anticipating coming to theaters, but then also which films do you want to own when they do come home. And so this is a really the first half of summer. You're getting a lot of like those big April and May releases coming home, and then towards the end of in August, and then maybe even into September, some of those bigger summer movies are coming home too. So yeah, I mean, no matter where you want to watch films or what experience you're looking for this summer, I would say Fandango's got you covered.
Awesome. And let me ask you, just before we hop into this, Megalopolis.
Yes.
Help me out. Is that how you say it?
Yes, Megalopolis. The Francis Ford Coppola epic.
Yes, it debuted at Cannes this past week. Pretty, from what I saw, pretty polarizing. People were like, it's either genius and amazing or whatever, or it's overly done and bombastic and all that stuff. What are your thoughts on the film, especially the breaking the fourth wall aspect of it?
Yeah, I personally haven't seen the film yet, so if someone's listening and they can show it to me, please do. But yeah, I mean, I've been reading some of the reviews. I am also someone, especially when it's a new Francis Ford Coppola film. Yeah, I don't want to know too much. Like I watched the teaser, I kind of saw some of what people were saying about it, but I want to go in clean, and I think we are still waiting to a certain degree to find out how we're going to be able to watch this film. IMAX has said that they will definitely be screening it, so it will be coming to an IMAX theater. And then beyond that, I think we're still waiting to hear. But I love it. I love the fact that, a filmmaker, a visionary like Francis Ford Coppola, can just pour everything he's got into a film like this, and yeah, let it be polarizing. I mean, some of the best films ever made are polarizing films. And I think especially in this day and age where, yes, we do see a lot of franchises and remakes and sequels, which without a doubt people are anticipating. We have a ton of them coming this summer. But then I think there's also should be room for films like Megalopolis to exist and to sort of, drive interest and for you to watch and sit with and maybe watch multiple times and kind of lose yourself in what kind of wild vision Coppola is trying to tell, and I think he is a legend.
Yeah.
And while he's here and making films, similar to Martin Scorsese as well, and I think Christopher Nolan is on that path too, and James Cameron, and just, seeing anything that these guys make, I think is rewarding for if you're a film fan.
Absolutely. Awesome. So the most anticipated summer movie survey, I was excited to see the results of this. Where do you want to dive in? There's so much good stuff.
I mean, Deadpool and Wolverine. I think, if you want to look at like an overarching kind of theme for this survey, and we broke it down into a bunch of different areas. Earlier, a couple of months ago, we did a most anticipated summer movies, just flat top 10. What are the top 10?
I think you and I talked about that. Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that. Deadpool and Wolverine led that. But then coming into sort of official summer, we wanted to break it down, and ask people most anticipated IMAX movies, action movies, comedy movies, art house movies, like really kind of break down some of this summer slate, get more films out there in front of people, and see what audiences are anticipating. And I think if there is a big theme, it was Deadpool and Wolverine just really dominating these lists. It led, most anticipated IMAX movies, action movies, and comedy movies, which I think, just goes to show you that I think this is probably the biggest Marvel Studios movie. Maybe since Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, Spider-Man: No Way Home. I would even put it on that level of Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame in terms of just anticipation. Tickets just went on sale this week, and it already broke first day ticket sales on Fandango, the record for 2024. It broke the first day ticket sales record on Fandango for first 24 hours for Deadpool movie for the franchise. So, I mean, it's just showing incredible amount of anticipation. We also released the first big ticket interview on Fandango with Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds and director Sean Levy. And it's like our highest performing interview in its first 24 hours ever for Fandango. So it just goes to show you that bringing, as Ryan Reynolds would say, ketchup and mustard together for the first time on the big screen, I think is something that not only have fans wanted to see, especially if you're a fan of the comic book, but I also think like for Marvel, it just shows you like, look, there's still a lot of love and energy and excitement for the films that Marvel Studios is putting out.
Absolutely. That's my most anticipated film for the summer, potentially probably the year, to be honest. I'm a huge MCU fan. I love Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and I love that they were able to do this, and I'm excited to see how it all meshes into the MCU. You know what I mean? I mean, there's so many things I'm excited for that with the film that I just can't wait to see it. And I can't wait to see it on a big screen. You know, there's you and I do a lot of screeners or screenings where it's, other people like us but there's something about a big sold out theater for an MCU film, event films like that, where, people are dressing up and people are cheering at I'm looking forward to that. I really can't wait for it.
Without a doubt, and I a lot of people were saying that last summer with Barbenheimer, like people were dressing up as Oppenheimer, as Barbie, and going to the movies. And, in our interview, Hugh Jackman actually says that, the head of Fox at the time when the first Deadpool came out, told him, just go to a movie theater and see what people are with this Deadpool, like see what it's about. So he says he went to a 9 p.m. screening in Times Square the weekend Deadpool came out. He was in disguise. He had a hat on. He sat on the stairs because it was so sold out, and he had never experienced anything like that before. Just like the yelling and the screaming and the laughing, and and that moment, he says, is what ultimately I think convinced him to do this film years later, and just in terms of seeing how the audience comes together for a character and for a franchise. And so it's also making history. It's Marvel Studios' first R-rated movie. It's the first Deadpool MCU movie. So, there's history on the line too here as well. And I think all of that entire recipe just comes together for this perfect storm of a blockbuster arriving this July.
Yeah, I can't wait, and I can't wait to see the reactions to it, the fan reactions. I'm excited to follow the box office. There's just so much to look forward to surrounding Deadpool, surrounding Deadpool and Wolverine. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. And as you said, it's kind of dominated everything, with the survey. It's just such a huge film. What overall have you seen? Have you seen any themes overall with the results in the survey? I mean, obviously besides Deadpool and Wolverine, like are we seeing big budget actions, or is it kind of everywhere? Or
I think it's a little bit of everything. Like I'm looking at our most anticipated IMAX movies, and this is the first time that we ever asked people, which movies are you most looking forward to seeing in IMAX theaters? And I think it's an important conversation to have, because I think like IMAX and premium large formats, I don't think they've ever been as popular as they are right now. Mm-hmm. People want, when they go to the movies, especially to see a big summer blockbuster, they want to see it, like they want that experience to be heightened, as max as you can go. I'm leaving the house to go see, Furiosa. I want to see it on the biggest screen with the craziest sound. And I think like I've always been like that, but it's great to see that general audiences are now saying, these experiences mean more to me. And so we did that survey, and I mean, what we saw, I think franchises, returning franchises, always a big theme around summer. Every time we get to summer, people are like, there's just a bunch of franchises. It's like, well, that's every summer.
Yeah.
There's franchises.
And that's what you're going and seeing. Yeah.
Right. That's what the summer season is. And look, and there's a bunch of stuff in between, and we have like art house movies, and we could talk about those. But, I think, for the biggest stuff, it's returning franchises. And looking at the IMAX, Deadpool Wolverine is number one, of course. But then you have like Twisters at number two. sequel to a 1996 movie, which Twister, which I think is to see that as high as it is, just goes to show you that there are some of these like random 90s movies that actually like still have a ton of interest in people wanting to see that return. I think I watched some footage of this at CinemaCon. It's, Universal promising it to be like the most immersive summer blockbuster experience that you have. So that's at number 2. There's a new Alien movie, Alien Romulus, that's on this list as well. Furiosa, the Mad Max saga, which comes out Memorial Day weekend, and then Quiet Place Day 1. So you look at what's interesting about these 5 for most anticipated IMAX is, you have your comic book movie, and then you have your tornado movie, and then you have your Mad Max action movie. Then you have 2 horror movies on there too.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show you like how people don't just want to watch action movies in IMAX. They want to watch like scary movies too. And I think Quiet Place Day 1 and Alien Romulus look awesome, both of those films. So.
Yeah. I, looking at this list, I remember when I was a kid, my mom, the first DVD that I ever had, my mom bought me, and she had no idea what she was buying, really. She just, knew I was a movie buff. And so there was this thing called DVD that had come out. So her and I went to this store and bought a DVD player. There were only a few films that were out on DVD, and one of them was Twister. And I just remember, and I'd seen it in the theater. I just remember like the emotion that I had as a kid seeing that movie, where it was like, oh my gosh, this could happen. We get, like I was just saying, we get tornado warnings, frequently in the winter. And so it was almost like, oh, this is what would happen, and it's scary and it's exciting and it's thrilling and all that. And then for Twisters to be coming out 30 years later or something. I'm bad at math. I don't know. Anyway, a couple of decades later, I'm like, that's another one of my most anticipated films, because I'm like, it's that nostalgia factor. It's that, it's even bigger and better now. It's not just Twister, but Twisters. And then, you have the obviously the huge advancement in CGI that I'm looking forward to seeing it kind of updated, if you will. And I don't even think Twister, I think the effects for Twister still hold amazingly up today, but I'm excited to see what they do with that. So there's a lot of exciting things in that IMAX. And, talking to you now, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to buy my ticket for that in IMAX. Because why wouldn't I? It's actually all 5 of these are the perfect films to see in IMAX this summer. I love that.
Yeah. No, that's a no-brainer. And I think also one thing that people forget about Twisters and the original Twister, and in watching the trailer with my kids, like they reminded me, like these are real people that go do this, like that go and drive into tornadoes and, get the data that helps, ultimately and hopefully save future communities from these storms. And so, I think that there's this, yes, this could really happen, and it does really happen, and it's tragic when these tornadoes sweep through cities, and so I think there's a certain personal connection that a lot of audiences have to the topic, and then yes, you have that advancement of VFX. These movies are known to sort of be at the forefront of what we can do with technology. And then there's this educational part of it where it's just like, these are real people. These are real like heroes that go in and do this. And I think that's, like there are no real X-Men, like there aren't mutants really. I don't know. It hasn't been revealed yet.
They just haven't told us, Eric.
But like, these are real, like, I think, kind of heroes too, that go and do this stuff. And so I think all of that, I think is what attracts audiences to a film like Twisters.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. What about, I'm a huge horror fan. What about on the horror front? Did I see that you guys that was part of the survey? What are you seeing with that?
I think what we are seeing is we're seeing a lot of the Alien and Quiet Place Day 1. Big ones. Also, Maxine,
Yes.
which is the trilogy for Ty West that was X and Pearl.
Yeah.
And now Maxine is the third one. Mia Goth stars, and this one takes place in like the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've been really loving about this series, and Maxine also leads most anticipated art house movie survey as well. What I love about these films is that, you know, Ty West kind of not only does he set these horror films in different periods, but he also shoots it as if it was a horror film that was made in that period.
Yeah.
You know, like X, I love X. You know, he kind of shoots it like it was set in the 70s. You know, I kind of got Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibes from the movie. And now, you know, with Maxine, he's going to kind of, I feel like it's going to feel like an 80s horror movie.
Yeah.
And so that one looks really good. Alien Romulus. What I love about this new Alien movie, and some people have been like, really, they're doing another Alien? I'm like, no, but this one you kind of want to pay attention to because it's set between the first Alien and the second Alien.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's in between those two movies, and it's directed by a guy named Fede Alvarez, who did Evil Dead Rise.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of my favorite horror filmmakers, along with the guys Radio Silence. I love them too, because they make like very accessible horror movies, but they go a bit harder than your normal horror movies. Yeah. And I think that's a really difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
And I've seen some, you know, extra footage of Alien Romulus. I haven't seen the film yet. But it's exactly that. You know, it's like, this is crazy. I'm on the edge of my seat. It's a bit harder than I was expecting, gory-wise, but it's really great stuff. And so I think he's going to knock this film out of the park. I think it's going to be a really great film. And you know, and so that one big, and then Quiet Place Day One. A lot of people don't realize that this isn't necessarily a sequel to Quiet Place Part 2. Emily Blunt, you know, John Krasinski, those characters aren't in this one. This one's set in New York City on the first day that the monsters arrive. So it's like a spin-off of those first two movies, expands the universe a bit. And it kind of gives you a different setting for Quiet Place, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Being from New York City and seeing how it's going to look. So, you know, those three films very much dominating horror at the moment. Also, M. Night Shyamalan has a new film called Trap that's coming out, and his daughter, Shauna Shyamalan, has a film called The Watchers, also on the list, based on a book that's coming out. I think this is got the first summer that a father and a daughter have horror movies coming out. Like,
oh, that's cool.
You know, in the same summer. So I think it's really, Shyamalan is all over the place. And his other daughter is the superstar music performer in Trap.
Yeah. Yeah, I love them. His daughter, you know, I've met both of his daughters as well for the Servant coverage that I did. And she actually, I believe, wrote and directed at least a few episodes of Servant. And so I was really excited when I saw those. I mean, I'm obsessed with Servant, but when I saw what she did with Servant, particularly with the directing, I was just like, I cannot wait for her feature film, you know, and here we are, and you know, I love that. Now we have two Shyamalans that I can look forward to their films. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's great. And both of them look so different. You know, The Watchers, it is based on a book. I haven't read the book, so I'm not as familiar with the story, but it looks freaky. Dakota Fanning stars as a woman who gets like trapped in a cabin, which seems like where there's like monsters outside, and there's all these rules about going out of the cabin and how does she get back to where she came from. So it feels really freaky and cool and wild. And then Trap I'm kind of obsessed with because it's almost like a lot of people look at M. Night Shyamalan, they're like, what's the twist in his movie? Mm-hmm. And I look at Trap and I watch that trailer and I'm like, he kind of gives you the twist in the trailer. Yeah. You know, Josh Hartnett takes his daughter to like a sold out rock show and she's all excited. But then he realizes that there's cops everywhere and he goes and asks the guy, what's happening? And he's like, oh no, this is a setup. to catch a serial killer, and Josh Hartnett is the serial killer.
Right.
So I like just that setup is so interesting to me. So it's just like, so are we rooting for the serial killer?
Right.
Like, what's the, like, it's almost like he's giving you, like, this is the twist, and I'm giving it to you right up front. And so what is the rest of this? So I'm really curious to see how this movie unfolds. And it definitely feels unique in terms of what we've seen from M. Night.
Yeah. And so that was the one thing I was going to comment on was this is much more, I don't want to say less fantastical, but this is much more, like you could almost see it happening. You know what I mean? Where, with something like The Happening or many of his films, Signs or whatever, there's a little bit of, imagination used for the viewer, where this is like, well, I go to concerts all the time, and there's police there sometimes. You know what I mean? Like it's more like, ugh, like, you know what I'm saying?
Hey, look. In my real life, I'm talking to you today, and I've been hearing helicopters outside my house. And why is that? Because I happen to live somewhat close to a guy named Rex Heuermann, who is a big serial killer who was caught on Long Island, New York, about a year ago. And they're searching his house as we speak. And so, like, yes, this could be a real situation where there are these real, like, kind of serial killers out there, and there are these elaborate sort of traps to kind of catch them. And you're right. This doesn't have, like, kind of that mystical, like, M. Night's last movie was kind of about the end of the world and these people showing up and saying the world is ending, yada, yada, yada. So this is kind of a real, feels more like one of his more realistic films.
Exactly.
In terms of being a thriller. But yeah, man, I mean, I'm definitely looking at Trap and I'm feeling some parallels in terms of what's happening in my real neighborhood.
Yeah. Right now. That's a bit scary. Now, comedies, I always love the big, I feel like comedy, obviously, they can pop up anywhere throughout the year, but I always feel like a lot of the big comedies, the giant bombastic comedies, often come out in the summer. What was the survey saying about the summer comedy films anticipated?
Yeah, it's funny. We see out of the 5, we have 2 R-rated comedies, like action comedies. Deadpool and Wolverine, of course, leads the list. Number 4 is Bad Boys, Ride or Die. So you have these both like duo R-rated kind of action comedies. And then they're surrounded by, I would say, the 3 biggest family movies of this summer. With Pixar's Inside Out 2, which is at number 2. Despicable Me 4 is at number 3. And the Garfield movie is at number 5. And so it's a little bit of, I feel like, and this is something that I would like to see. And it's funny, I was at CinemaCon and I was talking to Aziz Ansari about this because he's got a big R-rated comedy coming out. I believe towards the end of the year about like, gone, not Gone Are the Days, but like, there's not like a Hangover or there isn't like a big R-rated party movie. And I feel I miss that, if there's something missing from this summer slate, I feel like it's that sort of R-rated sex comedy that we used to get so many of back when. I'm hopeful that they're going to come back, and I was talking to Aziz about that, and he feels like they need to come back. And so, but when it comes to this summer and comedies, a lot of families are drawn to these 3 films: Inside Out, Despicable Me, the Garfield movie. I'm hearing from a lot of moms and dads who are like, "Where are the animated movies?" And they're on the way. John Krasinski's If just came out recently, and Garfield is coming out for Memorial Day weekend. And there aren't 2 bigger, I would say, animated kind of hyped franchises than the Inside Out movie and Despicable Me movies. The Minions are more powerful than anything.
Yeah.
So
I'm relatively surprised to see Bad Boys Ride or Die on the most anticipated summer comedy survey results because of the slap heard around the world. I wasn't sure if it was going to be ignored, if Will Smith had been literally canceled, if the audience cared the general audience cared at all. So that was surprising for me to see that on there. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out at the box office, if it has any, effect whatsoever. But I think a lot of people are going to be watching that box office to see, this is kind of his first big film since then. So I'm curious, or is it his first film?
I think he had one other film come out that the name escapes me. I think it was a streaming film. But this, for without a doubt, this is his most commercial film to come out since then. But you got to remember, the Bad Boys for Life came out was it January, February 2020, right before the world shut down. But it was, the most successful Bad Boys movie at the box office.
Right.
And it did go on to be the highest grossing movie of 2020, albeit an asterisk kind of year. So I think there's a lot of momentum coming into Bad Boys Ride or Die. And look, I can't speak for audiences everywhere. I can only look at the results of over 2,000 moviegoers and what they voted for. And you see this film prominently placed throughout our most anticipated. And so I think that there is a lot of love for the franchise. I think there's a lot of love for for Will and Martin.
Together, especially,
Yeah, very much. I would say alongside like similar to Lethal Weapon, and those kind of franchises. And I think there's just a lot of built-in love for that chemistry and watching them together. And so I think that's reflected in this survey, without a doubt. And we do have a big interview dropping. I think it's going to be the longest interview that you will see with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. We talked to them all about the legacy of the franchise and all that stuff, and you'll be able to watch that on Fandango.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to that one. What is your actually, before we get into that, the more art house films, you mentioned Maxine. For the general movie-going public, it's all about the big blockbusters and that sort of thing. But for especially film lovers and genre lovers, sometimes the summers aren't so packed for those fans. What are you seeing that people are looking forward to on the art house side this summer?
Well, Maxine is number one on that list. The Bike Riders, which is a stacked cast: Austin Butler, Jodie Comer, Tom Hardy, follows a motorcycle crew. And that movie's at number 2. It was supposed to come out, I believe, last fall, but it got delayed due to the strike. It was one of those films that's just got a really great ensemble, and they'd rather sort of wait for that ensemble to be available to promote the film.
Yeah.
So that one is at number 2. There's an animated film, cool little animated film called Robot Dreams. That's at number 3. Probably my most anticipated on this list, Kinds of Kindness, which comes out in June. This is the next film from Yorgos Lanthimos, who did Poor Things with Emma Stone. Emma Stone comes back, and she's in this film as well. I've heard it's like a sprawling film, almost 3 hours in length, that follows 3 different stories and the same characters, the same performers are in each story. So that one looks really cool. And then there's kind of like this under the radar horror thriller starring Hunter Schafer called Cuckoo. That's at number 5 on the list. So a little bit of a mix, I would say. You're seeing some kind of, under the radar horror mixed in with like some indie animation, mixed in with, awards kind of darlings. I'd love to see Megalopolis kind of drop into the summer at some point, but I don't know. That could be like a more closer towards the end of the year. But there's definitely, and it's not just these five. I always tell people, look between the blockbusters.
Yeah.
A lot of those like Sundance movies. There's another movie coming out called Dee Dee that didn't make the art house list, but it would be I think it's the best coming of age film of the year. Comes out towards the end of July about a kid kind of coming of age circa 2008, kind of the MySpace era, the IM instant messenger era, very, very, familiar era for me in my youth. So it was a really, really great film. That's called Didi, D-I-D-I, comes out at the end of July. So there's a lot of these other films, these festival films that will slide in between these bigger films. And I would say, look them up, watch trailers. If you're looking for something a bit different that isn't a blockbuster, there's plenty on the way. Just do a little research, go to Rotten Tomatoes, see what's out there.
And finally, I thought this was cool that you had most anticipated summer movies to own on digital when available, which, we briefly touched on Fandango at Home at the top of the show. But and this kind of reflects what we're seeing in the results of the other categories. Deadpool and Wolverine at number one. Are these people that would be skipping it at the theater? These are just never theater goers, or are these kind of both, like a mix of both, like somebody like me who then goes and owns it anyway when it comes to home?
Yeah, you know what I see in this list, and I do think these are people that are all going to go see these movies in theaters, but I think, when I look at these movies, Deadpool and Wolverine is number one, Alien Romulus, surprisingly, I think, number two, Despicable Me 4, number three, Furiosa 4, Quiet Places at 5. If you look at what all of those films have in common is that they have sort of a catalog of other films, and so, I would imagine that there'll be bundles available. If you don't have a Despicable Me movie or you don't own one, when part 4 comes out at home, you may be able to get a whole bundle of all 4 movies. And so I know that that's very attractive for people, especially the Alien movies, to have all of those Alien movies together, all of the Quiet Place movies together, all of the Deadpool movies together. Quiet Place is a third installment. Deadpool and Wolverine is a third installment. And so I think what we see here, likely, driven by, fans of these movies without a doubt, but also fans of the franchises and collectors and people who want to have that entire franchises to own at home.
I love that. I can't wait for everything we've talked about, really. This is our time. Where can we read the whole list?
Yeah, you can go to Fandango.com and you could see everything. And we actually have some other really fun stats that we're going to be rolling out around 4th of July. So maybe we can meet up again and talk about that stuff.
Absolutely.
And go to Fandango.com. Follow us on social at Fandango. Where we're rolling out all kinds of new images as we speak from many of these films. And we'll have some really big interviews as well before anybody else has them with some of the casts for these films. And so, follow at Fandango and check out Fandango.com for your, all your ticketing and watching at home needs. Yeah,
the whole shebang. Thank you so much, as always, Eric. It's always a pleasure for me to speak with you about films and the industry, and I can't wait till you're on next time.
Without a doubt, man. And look, and start your summer right. Go see the Furiosa movie. It's awesome. I loved it. It's a great way to start the summer.
I can't wait. I will do that. Thank you. All right. Eric Davis from Fandango. Always great talking with him, especially with all the great movies coming out for the summer. Lots of good stuff, as you heard. I'm looking forward to a bunch of them. And I want to know what you are looking forward to seeing this summer. Hit me up on socials at KMacMusic or at Kyle McMahon or at Pop Culture Weekly. You know where to find me on socials. Hit me up. Let me know what you're looking forward to, and I just might feature you on the show. All right. That's the show for this episode. I will see you next week. Actually, I'll see you very shortly for the, live from the National Memorial Day concert episode in just a few days. So I will see you then. I love you. We out.
Thank you for listening to Pop Culture Weekly. Hear all the latest at popcultureweekly.com.
most anticipated summer movies of the summer of 2024. They're not really summer movies. I mean, they're movies that come out in the summer, but they're not summer movies. I mean, they could be movies that take place in the winter or the fall or the spring. So they're not summer movies. They're just movies that happen to be coming out in the summer. Anyway, here's the summer most anticipated movies coming out with release dates in the summer of 2024.